Welcome everyone to being an ally, working with and advocating for LGBTQ plus unaccompanied children. My name is Mireya Beltré. I'm one of the social workers here at CILA. I'll be joined by my colleague Marissa, and we are so excited to be joined by Moraga, Archila with Kids in Need of Defense, San Francisco's office, as a guest speaker. CILA, if you don't know, is a project of the American Bar Association. We're a legal resource center. We're a capacity building organization, and we don't think children should have to go to court alone. And that's a primary reason why we do this work. A quick recap for those of you who are familiar with CILA, and for those who are not, welcome. CILA is based in Houston, Texas. We provide technical assistance regarding case-specific questions relating to children and youth with immigration cases. Technical assistance requests can be made via the Request Assistance tab on our website, and technical assistance can be related either to a child's legal case or to social service needs. We offer one Texas-specific working group, the Houston SIJS, as well as 5 national working groups: social services, asylum, SIJ, pro bono coordination, and detained youth, where we provide space for advocates to collaborate and interact and share information. We also provide trainings and written resources, and you can find those also on our website. We're constantly improving on those resources, so feel free to send us any requests through our website. We also host a platform featuring pro bono opportunities across the country and provide resources related to pro bono work for unaccompanied children. CILA believes that all those who are working in this field are champions for immigrant youth, and that they embody the 4 C's, working with courage, competence, compassion, and creativity. We applaud and thank you for your advocacy. So before starting on with the presentation, I would like to discuss some housekeeping. This is a 1.5-hour webinar. Please enter your questions in the Q&A box rather than the chat box, as this will help us keep track of those questions. We are going to try answering those questions as we go along, but if for some reason we're not able to answer or we skip your question, please follow up with us by submitting a technical assistance request to CILA, and we'll be happy to provide additional guidance directly to you. Okay, this webinar will be recorded and will be posted on our website within a week or 2. You can find all of our trainings under advanced trainings on our website or on our social work page. We will be providing all of you a copy of the PowerPoint and a handout of additional resources in a follow-up email that will go out either today or tomorrow. And towards the end of today's presentation, we're also going to be providing a survey for feedback. Please take the time to complete that, as that is going to help us identify areas of improvements. Know that we are always looking for insight and ideas for future trainings and webinars. Also, this course has been approved for 1.5 hours of Texas CLE credit. If you are licensed outside of Texas, please complete the survey to request an attendance letter. If you're not an attorney but would like to receive a letter of attendance, please fill out the survey as well. I'm going to hand it over to Marissa.
Thank you, Mireya. Hi, everyone. Marissa here. I'm one of the social workers here at CILA. And now we want to present a couple of questions to you. Sometimes these questions serve as icebreakers, but many times these questions help us learn more about the work being done and the challenges being faced by all of you doing this important work. This feedback will help us tailor future trainings and resources. We encourage your participating by scanning the QR code or by going to slido.com and inserting the number 313248 to submit your answers. Please note that your answer will be anonymous. We encourage you to be as honest as possible in your responses, and I'll give everyone a moment to do so before moving on. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and start with our first question here. Have you worked with clients who identified as LGBTQ+ or who may have an LGBTQ+ claim as part of their immigration legal release? And we see the popcorn still going, so we're going to give it a moment for everyone to have an opportunity to submit their response. It seems like most of you so far. Thank you so much. The popcorn is starting to slow down, but I want to give it a little moment longer. Okay. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead, and it seems like most of you have had an opportunity to work with LGBTQ youth. We're going to go ahead and move on. Our next question, how comfortable are you asking your client about their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression? Okay. The popcorn is still going, so we're going to give everyone a moment. Thank you again for participating. Okay, so far, it can be awkward, but it's important. Seems like that's the most response. Very comfortable, very uncomfortable. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Our next and last question. How comfortable do you feel working with clients who identified as LGBTQ+ or who may have an LGBTQ+ claim as part of their immigration relief? Comfortable? Very good. It's very active right now, so we're going to let it go. It seems like we're seeing very comfortable. There's no right or wrong answer. We just want to get a feel for how everyone feels out there. Okay. Very comfortable. It seems to be somewhat comfortable when the client starts to gain trust in me. Yes, for sure. We have to go at their pace. Comfortable. Very comfortable. I'm part of the family. Love that. Extremely comfortable. Thank you so much. We very appreciate this. Extremely comfortable. I'm queer myself and don't have difficulty discussing. Perfect. Thank you. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. We just want to get a feel for how everyone feels out there. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on. We'll let Mireya take over.
Be better if I unmuted myself. Thank you all for your responses and participation. You know, we started this conversation with you all last year with an introduction to working with LGBTQ+ youth. You can access that training, by the way, on our CILA website. We wanted to continue the conversation with you all today. We hope that this training will help guide advocates on how to be better allies to unaccompanied youth, to help them find the necessary support as they seek to find a stability, acceptance, and a place where they can be their true selves without fear. That can mean providing information, guidance, or just helping them understand terminology, helping them navigate barriers, or guiding them to the best resources available as close to them as possible within their communities. Okay, so we are going to do some friendly competition and see who's the fastest to answer. It is, let's see.
Yeah. Please note that if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to put your name. You can put your nickname, initials, however you want.
Okay. And this won't be for a prize, definitely, but you'll get the golden trophy for sure. All right. Let's see. Do we have the question? All right. What do the letters LGBTQ stand for? Who's the fastest?
Give it a little bit before revealing. Okay, I still see some responses. So I want to give everyone a chance.
Yes.
Okay, still going. Okay. What do you think, Mireya? You think it's about time?
All right, we're going to call it. We're going to call it.
Okay, here we go. Okay, the answer is that one. And the winner is Maria V. And Oscar, second place.
M in third. All right. Congrats. Gets the golden trophy.
Yes.
All right.
And congratulations to the winner. And now you could take bragging rights for the rest of the day for sure. And now we're going to be switching gears here. We're not going to be spending a lot of time pointing out the challenges or providing you statistics, for example, because by now most of us already know about the challenges, risks, and circumstances that impact LGBTQ youth, and in particular with unaccompanied immigrant LGBTQ plus youth. Our goal for this webinar is to provide you with practical guidance on how to support and navigate these challenges, including understanding a possible immigration legal relief. However, we still want to provide some information for context, as some here might be new to the conversation. LGBTQ plus youth face many significant challenges in their home country, prompting their migration. These challenges are due to a variety of social, cultural, and legal factors. Some of the challenges they face include discrimination and stigma, lack of comprehensive legal protection, limited access to support services, social isolation and rejection, violence and hate crimes, lack of comprehensive sexuality education, and limited advocacy and support networks. Unfortunately, the challenge and risks do not disappear once they migrate, as they continue to face many of the same challenges, in addition to those unique to migration, such as language and culture barriers, lack of little to social support. They face discrimination and prejudice due to their sexual orientation, gender identity, and immigration status. They face mental health concerns. This is impacted by their immigration experience and the challenges faced as LGBTQ plus youth. They lack access to LGBTQ plus affirming services. Many do not have access to safe housing, and many end without a home due to rejection from their own family or community. They also face many educational barriers. It is so important to note that while these challenges exist, unaccompanied immigrant LGBTQ plus youth are resilient and have shown incredible strength in the face of adversity. We should continue to work to address these challenges by advocating legal reforms, providing support services, promoting awareness, and empowering LGBTQ plus youth to live authentically and with dignity. Let me give you some numbers just for reference. ProVar, our sister organization, conducted a big survey in 2022. They surveyed 22,000 unaccompanied youth. That's a lot. Out of those, 157 did not identify either as female or male. Some other stats that were provided by the Montrose Center here in Houston is 45% of youth identified as gay or lesbian, 33% as bisexual, 21% as others, you can see here in the slide. We know that many of you conduct your work in Spanish and many have asked for guidance regarding terminology. We have included a link to a resource that includes the terminology you see in the slide and more. Please check it out. But before moving on, I want to briefly touch on the word queer. I wanted to highlight that the word queer can be liberating for some and offensive to others. Some view this word as an umbrella term of diverse sexualities and genders. However, some have a problematic history with the word. Please be mindful of this. It's always better to ask if someone is comfortable with the word or if they are comfortable with you using the word. With that in mind, let's move to the discussion to terms to avoid. Here, we highlight a few words that we should avoid and what to say instead. We know that words are very powerful. We know that one word can lift us up instantly, and while others can bring us down just as fast. Certain words carry a negative and oppressive connotation, and some people purposely use these terms to hurt others. But many times, most people use this term not knowing the negative history associated with these words. I encourage all of you to make time to stay current or familiarize yourself with these changes. This is part of being a culturally humble advocate after all. Many of you have seen the gender unicorn visual displayed on this slide, or maybe you have seen the gender bread visual. These two can be used as educational visual tools to explain sexual orientation or gender identity. For example, you can use the visual to explain that the unicorn has 5 areas. The first one is gender identity and is represented by a rainbow dot. Gender is displayed as a dot because our thoughts, identities are not visible to others. Identities are disclosed and not observed. Gender expression is noted by green dots surrounding the unicorn. The gender expression dots are all around the unicorn because gender expression is external and visible. You can then continue to explain the DNA strand signifies the sex assigned at birth, the orange heart represents physical attraction, the red heart emotional attraction, and so on. This is not a perfect tool as it focuses on a binary model, excluding non-binary individuals. However, do not discount it as a tool, as it can still give you a place to start with when explaining others, especially when explaining it to children. If you're going to be explaining sexual orientation or gender identity to a child or youth, there are some things to keep in mind. The first one, use simple and relatable language. Start by using language that the child can understand based on their age and development. Define sexual orientation and gender identity. Explain that sexual orientation is about who people are attracted to or have a romantic feeling for example. This could be an attraction towards others of different genders, that they own or the same or other. For gender identity, explain that it's about how people feel inside, how they understand and identify themselves. You can say something like, sometimes a person may feel like they are a girl, even if they were assigned a boy at birth, or they may feel like they are a boy, even when they were assigned as a girl at birth. It's important to listen to how someone feels and respects their identity. Emphasize love and respect. Explain that everyone is unique and special and that people have different ways of loving others. Emphasize love. Answer questions honestly and age appropriately. Remember, you do not have to know all the answers or be an expert on the matter. What matters is that you care and want to support them. Remember, this explanation should be adapted to the child's age, developmental level, and their ability to grasp abstract concepts. It's important to be patient, open to ongoing conversation, and to provide continuous support and guidance. We have expanded on these tips and have included others, and we'll be providing them for you after the training in the handout we have created for you. But before moving on to the next slide, you're probably wondering about the slinky in this slide. My colleague told me that she likes to use the slinky to describe sexuality, and I like what she said, and I want to share with you. She describes sexual orientation and gender identity like a slinky. The slinky is fluid, and the beginning and the end can be whatever you want them to be. Not necessarily binary, gay or straight, male or female. It does not have to adhere to one sexual identity, but can start and end at whatever point in the cycle. And that is constantly fluid throughout life. Only that person can identify where on the spectrum or the slinky they are or begin and when. And now I'll pass it to Mireya to talk to you about being an ally.
Thank you, Marissa. Okay, what does it mean to be an ally? So you may feel uncomfortable or a little awkward working with LGBTQ plus youth and still want to be a good advocate. When I worked in child welfare, we did a study of CPS social workers, and over half of my colleagues at that time reported discomfort in discussing sexual orientation with youth. So there are definitely others out there who are in the same situation. Something that can help is to get together with your peers or educators who are supportive of your efforts to ease your anxiety. Also, a lot of self-reflection, exploring your own biases and educating yourself on trends, legislation, or laws, as well as current events and challenges faced by the LGBTQ plus community as well. If you're concerned about getting tripped up by the acronyms, you can just apologize, but move on. And don't worry, those are important, but not vital. The fact that you're doing the work to be a better ally, that's what really matters. And it's the heart of the matter, to be exact. Some of you will be working with either detained youth, released youth, or both. Regardless of which, make sure you involve the youth in the decision-making process as it relates to their case. This is going to be important. Also, check in to see if there are any challenges that the youth may be facing within their environment. Ask them directly if they are having challenges. Sometimes youth may be saying that everything is okay, and are probably not speaking to you about those challenges. This also means that you may need to be ready to help the child resolve or work through an issue or a challenge. This is going to help them feel heard and seen, and even to trust. Receiving positive encouragement and support from one adult in their lifetime can be the difference between life and death for some youth. The support of one adult is known to build resilience in cases of traumatic childhood experiences and child welfare involved children. So be the difference. You can be the one. Consider, for example, mentorship programs through the state system, county, or even local nonprofits. Mentorship can provide necessary relief and resilience as support for youth. Ask the youth about how they are socializing. Do they like the school they're going to? If they're detained, inquire about their accommodation and pay special attention to their response and their body language for cues about their real situation. Let the youth know you're an ally by advocating against any unfair situations that are causing them anxiety or fear, whether that's related to their housing, their case, detention, policies within the shelter, for example, treatment by a sponsor. You can be their voice. You can send emails, you can talk to the school, you can be that voice if they need that from you. Helping them prepare is essential as they start to embark on the second half of their journey, the one here in the US. Help educate them with terminology, where to seek help in the community they'll be living in, and if they're detained, assess if they have positive rapport with their clinician. Ask the youth for permission to contact the clinician if that provides them with assistance or support. I would always prepare a safety plan, for example. I would contact community centers in the place where the child was going to and get them in touch with those and leave the phone numbers inside the safety plan as needed. For released youth, the challenges deepen if they're not addressed. When working with youth, we want them to be healthy and to be able to make decisions about their case. And that means that making their lives a little easier will go a long way. So if the child is lost or doesn't have support, it's usually more difficult for them to remain engaged in the outcome of their case. Consider the impact of the child's environment and how you can help facilitate the whole entirety of what is happening to them. It's a lot. They may be in a community that is hostile to members of LGBTQ plus community. They may be isolated. They may not be out to sponsors. There can be many factors. And as an advocate, we must consider the whole world of that child. Consider everything that is going on for them as you engage with them. Some children are not out to their parents, as we said, and much less they would be out to an unrelated or distant related sponsor. This can create a lot of stress and anxiety for the youth. Helping them address their concerns goes a long way to help them avoid being overwhelmed or feeling like they don't have alternative options. There are resources for youth that you can connect them to in the community they're going to, or even in their own schools. So one example of this is the Gender and Sexualities Alliances or Gay Straight Alliances. They've been around for a long, long time. And connecting, seeing if there's one of those centers in the community goes a long way. And they're very helpful and have been known to build resilience with LGBTQ youth. It's an excellent way of making community as well. Also, you may not be able to do all of the things that we talk about here in this training, but there are still more subtle and yet active ways to building allyship on behalf of LGBTQ plus youth. Some are as simple as having a welcome card with rainbows or a visual or interactive list of resources available for them, or even hanging a poster in your office that says this is a safe space or that indicates that you're an ally to LGBTQ plus youth, or even wearing a rainbow pin. The youth know, they notice everything. So you can't imagine the difference that it would make. I mean, you may be making a difference and not even know it. Sometimes being an ally means addressing issues that are important to the youth, whether or not at that moment they are relevant to the case. I also want to acknowledge and include that for advocates who identify within the spectrum of LGBTQ plus and beyond, working as an ally can feel triggering, and it is important to pay attention to those feelings, to be in touch with your own history and how working with unaccompanied youth you identify with can bring up difficult feelings and reflections. Self-care for you is going to be vital as you move toward providing the best support and guidance for you. Okay. So we are going to do a shift the focus here. And we're going to do a role play. We understand that this is a difficult conversation for some of us. We want you to know that it is not always vital to the case that a child disclose their sexuality, but we also understand that there may be a need to have this discussion nonetheless. Okay. All right. I'm going to get ready. Marissa is going to be the advocate, and I will be playing the youth.
Just give me a thumbs up when you're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, perfect. Diego, I know that I've been asking questions that might appear intrusive or too personal, and I want to make sure that you're feeling okay before I move on to more questions. Do you need to stand up, stretch, or drink some water or something like that?
I'm doing okay.
Perfect. I have more questions. These questions are about sexuality. I know these questions can be awkward or uncomfortable for some to talk about it. Is it okay that we talk about this?
Not sure what you mean.
Do you know what sexuality means, Diego?
I think I do, but why do we have to talk about that?
Yes, I know that it's probably the last thing you want to do, especially with an adult you just met, but this will help me learn more about you and know how to better support you.
What if I don't want to answer some of those personal questions?
Excellent question. Please know that even though I'm asking these questions, you have a choice and the right to choose if you want to answer or talk about this with me or anyone else. I know that it's your choice. You want to share it. Sorry, read it. Also, I know that this is your choice. Who you want to share this information with or anything else. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I understand.
Is it okay if I ask you more questions?
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you, Diego. Can you tell me in your own words what sexuality means to you?
Is it about boys and girls liking each other?
Well, that's part of it, but it's actually more than just boys and girls liking each other.
So, like when you like someone more than just being friends?
Something like that, but let me explain. Sexual orientation, to you, sometimes people may like or be attracted to someone of the opposite gender, just like you said, when girls or boys like each other. People who are attracted to the opposite gender can be referred to as heterosexual individual. However, some people might feel attracted to someone of the same gender, like a girl liking a girl or a boy liking a boy. People who are attracted to their same gender can be referred as gay or lesbian. And there are also people who might feel attracted to the opposite or same gender, and that term can be referred as bisexual. However, there is a lot more about sexual orientation than what I just told you, but I did not want to overwhelm you with information. Any questions so far?
No, I think I understand.
Now, regarding gender identity is different than sexual orientation. Regarding gender identity, some might find themselves identifying with the same gender they were assigned at birth, for example, boy or girl, while others find that they feel like they are something other than their born gender. For example, born a boy, but feel or identify like a girl, and some can identify to both or neither gender. I know that is a lot of information. I want to pause here to check in with you. Do you have any questions, or do you want me to explain or expand on any of this?
No, this has helped me understand a little bit better.
I want to ask you about your sexuality and gender identity. This may help me better understand you, your case, and identify any resources that might may be helpful to you. Regardless of what you tell me, I accept you and I'm here to help you. There's no wrong answer. Does that make sense?
Yes, I understand.
Great. To start, I want to ask you about your sexuality. Can you tell me of a time you had a crush or where you were attracted to someone?
Well, before coming here, I liked this girl that was in school with me, but we never dated. But I met this guy during my journey that I really bonded with, but we did not date. I'm confused now. I do not know if I like guys or girls, but I know that I feel like a male inside. But why are we talking about this again? Why would you need to know this to help me?
Great question, and I'll explain, but let me first start by saying that it's okay if you do not know if you like girls or boys. Some might know early how they identify, but others may not know until much later, and that's perfectly all right. Also, sexual orientation and gender identity can be fluid, which means it can change throughout life. What do you think about that?
That makes sense to me, and it makes me feel better.
As to your second question, the reason why I'm asking is because it would help me identify needs and potential risk or challenges that you might face. It may also be relevant to your immigration case, for example, if you suffer in some way because of your sexuality or gender identity. There's more. Young people who identified as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or other have certain protections under the law here in the US because they can experience challenges and discrimination from others who respond negatively to their sexual orientation or gender identity. So if that is your situation, I want to be able to provide you all the resources and information about any immigration relief, rights, protection, or any support and guidance that you need. Secondly, I want to help you connect with the right people and give you the tools that you need in your community.
I understand. Thank you for that.
You indicated you are not sure if you like boys or girls. Have you ever explored this with anyone?
I did talk to my clinician a little bit, but I'm not ready to talk more about it.
I respect that. Please know that only you can decide when the time is right and who you would like to share this part of yourself. I understand your reservations because sometimes people are very quick to judge and label others who they perceive as different. However, that's on them and not on you.
People do judge. They can be mean.
Yes, they can be. The important thing is for you to know is that you're important and that you matter regardless of your sexual orientation or gender identity. Who you are and how you feel, especially the way that you feel safe, that's the most important. Also, you do not have to use any of the terms like heterosexual or gay or any of the other terms I mentioned earlier to describe yourself. But if you do, that is your decision to make and not the decision of others. We want you to feel that you are in a safe space where you are being treated with respect and dignity. Has anyone ever made you feel unsafe or uncomfortable here or anywhere else?
No, everyone has made me feel welcomed here and respected.
Okay, and this is where we end our role play. But if Diego were to say that he does not feel safe, offer to explore that with them. Ask him about the reason he does not feel safe, what can be done in the shelter to make him feel safe. Has anyone made him feel unsafe or uncomfortable outside the shelter, and so on. You can, but however, this is a very heavy conversation. If you feel that that they need a break, please be mindful of that, offer that to them, or offer to continue the conversation at a later time if it's something that needs to be done. Thank you.
Okay. So we want to give you guys a hypothetical. And this is, I'll read it for you guys. During his stay at shelter, Felipe expressed not being ready or comfortable disclosing their sexual orientation to their uncle. Felipe said they wanted more time to be ready and have that conversation in person. 2 months later, once we're unified, Felipe disclosed to the uncle. Felipe's uncle did not respond in a positive or supportive manner. The advocate then finds out that the youth was asked to leave the home for being gay. So we have a question here for you guys. How, if you were Felipe's advocate, how would you help and support him? So this is going to be another Slido. We'd really like to hear from you. give you a moment to. I see some answers in the chat. Yes, Diana, assigned at birth. That's right, sex assigned at birth. Diana also says to find him housing for queer youth, peer support.
Yes, some answers are showing up.
Thank you, Diana. Gender assigned at birth. Sorry. Yes, absolutely. They could be. And we didn't go over all of the other terms that are included in LGBTQ plus. The plus would signify other identities, and due to the limitation of time, we had to shorten it, but I could go on for hours about this subject. But thank you for pointing those things out.
Yeah, we're getting a lot of answers. Thank you so much, everyone. This is so helpful. Thank you for all the amazing work you're doing out there. Great.
Yes, peer support is so important. It builds a lot of resilience. I volunteered at a queer youth drop-in center in Tacoma, Washington. And it was one of the best experiences that I had. As far as building allyship and supporting queer youth, they had such a safe space to be creative, to ask questions, really important questions, and to get that mentorship from supportive adults. It was vital.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get moving as we don't want to run out of time. We have an amazing guest speaker that we want to get to, but sorry. However, sorry, I'm muting myself here. Thank you again, of course, for your responses and for definitely making a real difference and an impact on this youth's life. Sadly, this hypothetical is quite often, it happens quite often, but you, the advocate, can play a crucial role in supporting and assisting LGBTQ youth who find themselves in this type of situation. I want to briefly highlight ways that you could support a youth like Felipe. The first thing is to ensure their immediate needs and safety by connecting them with emergency housing options, such as a shelter or transitional housing program specifically designed for LGBTQ plus youth. This can also include connecting them with essential resources like food, clothing, and healthcare, provide emotional support and validation, refer them to LGBTQ plus affirming services. This includes referrals to organizations, counseling services, support groups, legal aid services, and healthcare providers who specialize in LGBTQ plus issues, family reconciliation and mediation, but only if the youth desires to do so. You can assist the youth in pursuing their educational goals, whether it's be finishing high school, pursuing higher education, or assessing vocational trainings programs, for example. Connect them to advocacy and legal assistance and mental health support if needed. It is important for you to your approach to include cultural sensitivity, empathy, and respect for the youth's identity and experiences. Collaborate with the youth in decision-making and prioritize their autonomy and well-being throughout the support process. We have created a handout with many resources, including how to find safe housing or shelters for the youth. We'll be providing this handout after the webinar. Also, please check out our new Youth Toolkit, A New Path, My Toolkit for Navigating Life in the United States. This is intended for unaccompanied immigrant youth, and it contains practical guidance for many challenges, including LGBTQ issues and resources. We encourage you to share it with them. And now I'm gonna let me take over here.
Yeah. Remember, we become better allies when we're thinking about solutions to the everyday challenges our clients face. So there are other tips, but in the service of time, I just want to start with the second half of our training. We are so excited for our guest speaker. Ana, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but we are so excited you're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marissa and Mireya. I greatly appreciate your presentation and I learned a lot. Thank you. My name is Moraga, Archila. I am a supervising attorney at Kind in our San Francisco office. And I will walk you through some slides on why we want to be an ally, what are the reasons that we want to bring in that cultural responsiveness aspect, especially when we work with LGBTQ youth, some of the intersections of LGBTQ and race, looking at that, making sure that we have the language, some best practices, and I'll have a couple of hypos for you too. So I hope that I get a lot of participation on the chat. So let me get started here with my presentation. Oh, and I have lost it. I have so many windows open. Here it is. Okay. Okay, are you able to see that?
We could see your notes.
Okay, sounds good. I just left it. Perfect.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you, Ana.
Better that you don't see my notes, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, so much for being here. And we'll start with some introspection to center our clients. So oftentimes we think in this work, we have to think about our client, we have to make sure that our client is centered, and all of that is true. But sometimes the centering has to be, is very related, very linked with our ability to center ourselves and with the ability to process anything that we may have heard, especially when we're thinking about LGBTQ clients. We ourselves as advocates have perspectives as to what it means to be queer in the community, wherever we are, wherever we are. Maybe we heard about queerness when we were growing up. Maybe we've had a relationship with people who are trans. And so I will ask you to think about that, to do a little bit of introspection. But before we go into that, about a couple of weeks ago or so, we did a cultural responsiveness training at Kind through our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And we talked about what cultural responsiveness means. And we provided this definition for the audience. And I will read this to you. It's the ability to understand cultural differences, and that includes our own beliefs, identities, and cultural backgrounds, recognizing potential biases, and being able to learn about and honor our clients and colleagues. And I want to focus in that middle part of this definition here, examining our own beliefs. So part of being an ally is making sure that we are examining what we think when it comes to LGBTQ youth. What are those identities that may have shaped our own identity? What are the people that may have shaped our own identity? What's our own cultural background that may have taught us about LGBTQ youth? So as you think about different ways of being an ally, I will ask you to do some introspection as to where your own perspective comes from. And I can tell you that I am queer, I identify as queer. I did not come out until my late 20s. It was very difficult for me to come out. I was born in Guatemala, and I went back to Guatemala to work there for about 5 years. And during that time, I think that some of my internalized homophobia and transphobia may have been cemented. And it was really difficult for me to come out then. And I came back to the US and I was able to surround myself with people that were just the most loving to me. And that finally I was at a point in which I was able to be my full self. And I am very conscious that when I work with LGBTQ clients, some of what I learned growing up about the queer community, some of what may have hindered my own coming out may be expressed if I don't do the processing myself to be able to address and stop my own internalized homophobia. So that's why I think that doing this exercise and having this introspection really helps us to center our clients, because in the end, that's our role, and that's part of what we're here to do in the work with youth. So I will ask you to take a couple of minutes to think about where your perspective about LGBTQ youth comes from. If you can just think about it and think of 3 experiences, maybe 3 memories or 3 people that have taught you or have influenced this perspective for you. So let's just take a couple of minutes to do that. You can just jot it down on a paper or on a Word document. And I promise that you'll come back to this document in your meetings with clients. So if you can just jot down 3 experiences or 3 memories about where your perspective comes from. You have a couple of minutes to do that. Now, bring us back. The way that I use this in my own practice is that whenever if I know ahead of time that I'm going to be meeting with a client who identifies as LGBTQ or may have an imputed claim, I want to bring back to the forefront as to how my own perspective may be influencing the way that I approach this conversation, because I want to constantly be doing the work. So I want to remind myself, okay, my upbringing may be having an influence in how I talk about religion with a client who is LGBTQ. I mentioned that I am from Guatemala and I was born there. My family is from the eastern side of the country, Izabal, and the United Fruit Company, which later on became Chiquita Banana, that's where my dad was born. Highly influenced, highly Western influence, and my grandmother was evangelical Christian. And my family found in the church a community in the US. So it was, when I was in Guatemala, it was really hard. When I came here, it was really hard because it was a very intrinsic part of my family history that tied to religion. And unfortunately, the church was not affirming at that time. So I want to bring this to the forefront so that I'm conscious and aware as to how I may be approaching and how I can address and do away with some of what I may have felt or I may have heard when I was growing up. Okay. So introspection is very important. Why else is this important? As advocates, we may be seeking immigration relief for the youth, and we may have some ethical obligations. So a question for you all: do we have an ethical duty to approach the relationships with our clients through a cultural responsive lens, through an allyship lens? Do we have an ethical duty to do this? Yes, based on confidentiality. B, yes, based on competence and communication. C, A and B, or no, we don't have an ethical duty. What do you all think? And I may have given away part of this answer already, but what do you all think? Can you put it on the chat? Can I get some activity on the chat here? Yes, I'm seeing a lot of C's, yes, overwhelmingly C. Yes, that's right. It's A and B. Confidentiality, because as Mireya said, and Marissa also explained, our client may not be safe, and there may be some facts or some identities that they have disclosed to us, and they may not be safe where they are. We talked about Felipe, and Felipe not being supported or affirmed with uncle. So if our client is in a situation like that, and our client has disclosed that there is a pronoun that they would like us to use in our relationship with them, asking them about whether it's safe for them to use that pronoun outside of that relationship. For example, Felipe's uncle may be outside our meeting space. And how are we going to talk, the three of us, in relation to this client? What's our client comfortable with? So centering our clients' safety and consent for us to, of course, always disclose. So confidentiality is key when we think about our ethical duties. So before, and because sometimes we may not be thinking about this in our conversations with the client outside the space, even in relating to our client outside the space, as we say hi, or as we say bye, or as we point to something in our office space, a toy or something like that, we may not be thinking about it, but this may be part, how they identify may be part of that confidential duty that we have as advocates, especially as we're working under an attorney license. The duty of competence, because if we're seeking for immigration relief, making sure that our client knows and has all of their opportunities, so knows all of everything that they can apply to, and we can do it competently. If we move forward with any of these immigration reliefs, which we will cover in a little bit, we can do it competently, and also communication, as we will be talking with our client about the different immigration reliefs that they are eligible for. Okay. And a little bit more about why this is important. Our client may have experienced harm and violence in home country on their way to the US and here, as we learned from Felipe's experience. So our ability to be allies to our client is a way to address any harm and violence that they may have experienced and redress that harm or violence. I talked about showing up fully. I talked about doing that introspection so that we can show up fully. As we're able to talk to our clients about their different identities, we also allow for our clients to show up fully, not putting any pressure or any conditions as to how they show up. And that means there's not an expectation for our client to come out, because we can move forward with relief for an imputed asylum claim, for example. So that's not the expectation, and that's not the goal in asking our client about their sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. That's never the goal. Our goal is to provide option, and our client can decide, yes, I want to come out to you, or our client may decide not to, and that's okay. But in just asking these questions, we allow our client to visibilize their identity. Oftentimes, these are identities that have been invisible, or they have faced oppression because of these identities. And everything goes to trust. All of these, everything that we've talked about so far is about developing trust with our client, which I see as a key component of the client attorney or client advocate relationship. And many of you talked about trust in that first slide of how comfortable, or third slide, I want to say, how comfortable do you feel working with LGBTQ clients? Many of you brought up trust. Okay. So in terms of developing trust, I also want to just encourage all of us to approach this relationship with LGBTQ clients from a place of curiosity and with an open mind. I oftentimes start my relationship with my clients through games. Children express so much through games. Oftentimes I learn so much about them by just playing with them. Maybe there is a card deck that we can take out and just like play with them, something that has nothing to do with their claim, but just to build rapport. And I may understand better about their family dynamics, because it may come up as we're exchanging cards, or I have this very basic game, 3 things about ourselves is what I call it. And everybody in the room engages in this game, including if I am working with an interpreter, the interpreter will be part of this too, because we need our client to feel comfortable with the interpreter as well. And sometimes that can be tricky in indigenous communities, because the community may be very small and our client may not feel comfortable having another person learn their story. But anyways, everybody then we bring everybody into the circle of trust through this exercise. 3 things that we each disclose about ourselves. It can be, I like chocolate ice cream. It can be, I enjoy basketball, or it can be like my favorite thing, my favorite subject at school is math, whatever it is, 3 things. And sometimes if I can sense or perceive that my client may be, that may be a little bit difficult for my client to do, to just tell me 3 things, then I switch it and I say, let's ask each other 3 questions. It may be easier for them to think of what are 3 things that they want to know about me? And then I ask, what are 3 things that I want to know about them? It may be easier to answer than to just come up with these 3 things. So starting your relationship with storytelling, choices, and games. And then ending your meetings with your clients with grounding exercises. This is going to be extremely affirming for you, especially if they have told you that they knew of somebody who may have experienced harm in home country because they identified as LGBTQ. A lot may have come up in this conversation with you, and you may have both, you may have brought up some experiences that were difficult for them in how they perceive themselves and how they perceive the LGBTQ community. So there are lots of grounding exercises they can do. I love tapping because it is something physical that we can do together that helps to calm down. And I can do tapping with breathing exercises too. There is the butterfly tap exercise where we just tap here for a few seconds. We tap around our eyes. We feel our wrists, right? And I say, let's feel each of our little fingers. And what do they feel like? And do you feel the texture of your nail? And we do a lot of like feeling, sensation. What do you see? Can you tell me something in this room that stands out to you? What is it? What color is it? Let's think about bringing the child back to a place of safety that is our office. It's important to take into account that the safety may start and end in our office. It may not be that our client feels safe outside if they are not supported or affirmed by a sponsor or by somebody who brought them to the meeting, or maybe that person doesn't know. It may not be that they have come out to that person yet, so they don't know, and that person doesn't know, and they may not feel comfortable yet coming out to them or expressing any of the memories or experiences they have told us. Choices of physical placement, of course, where our client sits, whether our client prefers the door open or closed, making sure that we have chairs that are appropriate for our young clients to have both feet on the floor, and learning about where our client formed their LGBTQ perspective. Sometimes it helps to think about ourselves, not from within ourselves, not from who we are, but how is it that we've learned about the world? How is it that we can conceptualize the world? So I ask my clients, do you know anybody who was gay, for example? What did you know about them? Who were they? What was their relationship with them? Did other people, what were the relationships of your family with that person, for example? What about other people? And sometimes it may be helpful to build what our client knows about the LGBTQ community before we ask them about themselves, about their own identities. Language. So this is where we talk about the intersection of the LGBTQ identity and race. Our identities are not in a vacuum, of course. So we want to make sure that we immerse ourselves. It's like jumping into the pool and immersing ourselves in the places that our clients come from. Where are they from? And because I mentioned that I am Guatemalan, I went from Guatemala, I am Guatemalan. I also mentioned that my father is from the eastern side of Guatemala. The indigenous peoples in the eastern side are Quechua peoples. And I want to make sure that if somebody, and I put myself in my clients' shoes, if somebody is going to build relief for me, and if I have an idea of that may have to do with my fear, I'm talking about asylum, my fear of being in the country, it would make it a little easier for me if they knew a little bit about my country. And I will ask you to know a lot and to immerse yourself a lot in our clients' context and country conditions. And a language map is key if you have clients who are from Guatemala or clients from countries where there may be different languages that are spoken, being able to figure out what language is spoken in the area that your client is from, and being able to see what are the experiences of the LGBTQ community in that area. Are there leaders in that area who have been LGBTQ? Is there anybody in Congress, for example? Let's zoom out, not just in the area, but there's somebody in Congress in Guatemala that's LGBTQ. Could our client have heard something perhaps in the news about this person? And how were they treated? What did other people think about them? So let's immerse ourselves in the context so that we can have the questions and the language to ask our clients about the LGBTQ experience in their communities. Our clients may not be able to identify themselves as Indigenous. There is a lot of stigma in that self-identification. 36-year-long civil war as well, that where most people who were killed or disappeared were Indigenous. So there may be a lot of fear in identifying as Indigenous, even to this day. So take that into account in order to build the trust and the support and to build your knowledge to be able to talk with your clients about LGBTQ. And in that intersection of LGBTQ and race. And also you may have an interpreter working with you. What can you learn about the interpreter? Is this interpreter the best interpreter for your client, in the sense that how does this interpreter feel about translating this conversation with your client? Could there be any homophobia or transphobia in this translation coming from the interpreter? Maybe there is a conversation that you can have with the interpreter ahead of time and let them know these are the questions that I will ask, and I will like to learn more about how you feel about asking this and what language you will use, because you also want to make sure that you are jotting down some notes as to how the language is translated with different interpreters, as you may be preparing for an asylum interview where you want to make sure that you have the best translation for LGBTQ language in general. So make sure that you have the right interpreter. That's part of our competency. And making sure that you build some time to learn from the interpreter, to get to know the interpreter, and to ask questions from the interpreter too, because they could be a cultural liaison for you as well. And now onto some tools. So the identity wheel has been a lifesaver for me, in the sense that it has opened doors in a conversation around gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation. So I ask my clients, can you pick 4 colors, any colors, maybe your favorite color, the colors that you don't like so much, any colors, let's pick 4. And with one color is for every question that you see inside the wheel here. So for example, my client picks red for identities that they think about most often. And then they color in the spaces below the identity. They color in, oh, I think about most often about my age, because my birthday is coming up. My birthday's coming up. So now I'm thinking about my age. So I'll color in red. Okay. And when we get to the third question, so what are the identities that you would like to learn more about? Oftentimes for LGBTQ claims, the identities that get that assigned color is gender and sexual orientation. I want to learn more about gender and sexual orientation. Oftentimes for imputed claims too, I want to learn more about what it means when people were telling me these hurtful words. Why were they doing that? What were they seeing about me that they were so mean to me? So let's think about But think about like, let's open up that curiosity. It may be varied because it could be so hurtful and so dangerous for them to think about these identities. But this is a conversation opener for me. So that's the identity wheel. And then I also have the gender expression box. So Mireya was talking about the gender assigned at birth, right? And having that conversation between sex and the gender, my gender identity, but also what was the gender assigned at birth. And I do this exercise for my client to visualize, how is it that people expected them to express themselves according to the gender assigned at birth? And we oftentimes pull the birth certificate. For some countries, you'll see that the birth certificate will say sex. For other countries, you'll see that the birth certificate will say gender. We pull it out and we look, the gender assigned at birth was X in my country. And then what are the expectations for people who, for example, women? What are the expectations for women in my country? The expectations are that they may have some caretaking responsibilities, they may have to dress a certain way, etc., etc., etc. And then in the way that I expressed myself and the way that others perceived my behavior, where did that fall? Maybe I actually really I wanted to be in school and I did not like to take care of my siblings, just as an example. And I had difficulty being able to go to school because my parents expected me to be at home taking care of my children. Okay, so maybe that goes outside the box. Going to school maybe goes outside the box. I really liked wearing pants because maybe I felt comfortable wearing pants and the expectation was that I had to wear a skirt. Okay, that goes outside the box. So this really helps to visualize where is the harm coming from and why the child experienced the harm. So I call this a gender box. And I have some questions that I have used with clients. And Giselle Lopez in KIND's Seattle office was really helpful in helping me figure out the best way to organize these questions. And we came up with gender expression. Asking about gender expression is the most tangible way that it may make it easier for our clients to talk about gender expression first. And as Mireya and Marissa talked about, gender expression being outwardly visible, and then gender identity being my own self. How do I feel inside? What's the gender that I identify with inside? And then sexual orientation being the physical, romantic, emotional attraction to others. So these are the questions that I have come up with, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on these questions, but you will definitely get these in the materials. But I want to point out the use of another tool here, and that's drawings. For gender expression, I ask my clients to draw themselves as to how they would like to look in 10 years. Let's just imagine ourselves in 10 years. Where are you going to be? What would you like to be? And how would you look? Let's draw ourselves. Let's do portraits, self-portraits for how do we want to look. And I have this idea because when I was growing up in high school, one of the teachers asked me to do this. And now looking back, I was challenging gender norms in this portrait. And I feel like this was part of me wanting to come out so bad. It was the baby queer in me in an expression that I felt was safe at the moment. And so, and I was telling my clients, this is part of, we will keep this in the file. Nobody will see it, of course. This is part of the confidentiality. So the use of drawings, how do they want to look? How do people perceive them in home country? Maybe the way that they express themselves is more aligned to how people perceive them, but that's not their ideal self. Who is their ideal self? Who do they feel? Who are they? Can they show up in this drawing for us? So use of drawings, really important. And this may be helpful for clients who are maybe 12, 10, 9, or 13, 15-year-old clients may be better able to express by having a conversation with you, but use of drawings for those younger clients may be extremely helpful. And I have the questions in Spanish too. And I'm sorry that I don't have them in all more languages. I wish I knew more languages, but just in English and Spanish for now. And now let's talk about a hypothetical. Okay, you have Felipe. We talked about Felipe with Mireya. So Felipe, now we're adding more facts here. Felipe is 15 years old and from Guatemala. And you're goal setting with Felipe. So this is one of your first meetings with Felipe. What is it that you're going to accomplish in your relationship? That's what this meeting is about. So let's think about, what do you know about yourself? What is an activity that will allow you to build trust with Felipe? Is there anything else you'd like to learn about Felipe's background? Knowing that Felipe is from Guatemala, hint, hint. And what is an activity that you can use for Felipe to ask about LGBTQ identities and imputed claims? I don't think that we have a lot of time, but if I can get a little bit of activity in the chat about Felipe, can you tell me, is there anything that you'd like to learn more about Felipe or an activity that you'd like to use with Felipe? And in this exercise, I'd like for you all to teach me about your own practices. I don't have all the answers, and this is not an exclusive list of practices to do with LGBTQ clients. You have your own. Most of you have worked with LGBTQ clients before. So I would like to know, what are your practices to work with LGBTQ youth? What are some activities that you would like to bring up in your conversation with Felipe? Talk about favorite things and engage more from there. Yeah, using these questions that may have nothing to do with the claim as a thread throughout your claim. Yeah, there may be something that you learn about interest, in terms of interest. Talk about what they like to do in their free time. That's right. Yes, and who are they hanging out with? Like, who are their friends? Who is their community? Yeah, that's true. Any others? Okay, then we'll move on to another slide here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about working with LGBTQ in the context of immigration relief. And this is asylum, and these are the asylum elements. And I won't go in depth here because I want us to get to the LGBTQ, especially the particular social groups. But I just want to emphasize that when it comes to persecution, you need past persecution or future persecution, right? You don't need both. Maybe some of our clients have not experienced past persecution themselves. They may have known of LGBTQ community that was persecuted in the past, but we may not have any instances of persecution against themselves. If they haven't expressed in their gender identity, or they haven't come out, or we may not have the facts for past persecution as it relates to themselves, to their own experience, or any harm to them. However, we may have the facts for future persecution based on those conversations with us about their identities, based on what they know now about how the community is treated in home country. Are they vulnerable for if they were to go back and to face that future persecution? Maybe it's their expression, it's their gender expression that would put them at risk. So just, keep that in mind, that oftentimes we're looking for past persecution and future persecution, but that's not what the law says, it's or. So let's make sure that we ask about the future too. And sometimes it may require that we actually have some learn with them about the country conditions in home country for the queer community. And we have the 5 protected grounds: race, religion, nationality, political opinion, and particular social group. Can you tell me on the chat, what do you think could be protected grounds for LGBTQ clients? Just, if you can just tell me, like, what do you think what are the protected grounds that we could use for an LGBTQ claim? Yeah, particular social group, PSG, political opinion, yes, absolutely, political opinion, yes, absolutely. We're thinking about how their framework around the LGBTQ community. What do they think about the LGBTQ community? So definitely political opinion. Yes, absolutely. They may have said something that the persecutor knows about their defense for the queer community. Absolutely. Yes. Anything else? I just want to drop religion. Yeah. I want to drop religion there, but I'll just put a pause there. We'll see this in a different slide. Okay. And this is the case law, not an exhaustive list. There are so many more cases than these, but these are some of the seminal cases for LGBTQ claims. I put the link here for the guidance, USCIS's guidance on these claims, and you'll see that they have a much bigger list there. And of course, it's not everything. Their list, I believe, ends at 2015. We have had more cases since then. And one of those cases is Bringas Rodriguez, which I highly recommend that you, if you get a chance. I know that reading all of these cases will be a lot of time, but if you get a chance to read one of these cases, I highly suggest Bringas Rodriguez, because this case is based on childhood abuse, and the applicant here faced verbal abuse by a parent in home country that had to do with gender expression. So I think that the facts here are facts that I have seen in many of my cases. And I think that even if the applicant is not it doesn't identify as LGBTQ, the facts that father, the words that father used against Mr. Bringas Rodriguez are so common in many of cases, which makes you think we have so many more LGBTQ claims that maybe we think of. So please go ahead and read Bringas Rodriguez. And it's also really important for the willing or unable prong in asylum, because the government, not the BIA and the IJ, they decide that there are some positive affirming legislation for LGBTQ community in Mexico. So they call it numerous positive steps. And so one of the reasoning for denying the claim is based on that. And the Ninth Circuit in this case says there was still violence. Even with these positive steps in the legislation, that's not enough. And also there is some very good language around whether a child needs to report to the police. So highly recommend. Okay. These are the PSGs that I have used in my practice. I don't know for a fact that the asylum officer used this one PSG of these. I throw them all and let the asylum officer pick. But of course, when we get our decisions, we don't know which PSG our case was granted on. But these are the ones I use in my practice. I'm sure that you all know many more as well. And now let's go to SIG. So in SIG, we're thinking about the mistreatment by the parents. So just like I said in Bringas Rodriguez, it's really important to figure out where maybe our client hasn't come out to us, but where were the facts of abuse? What were the facts of neglect, perhaps, that our client experienced that may be tied to their identities? And I don't want to fall into the trap of US exceptionalism here, because oftentimes we're thinking, all of this our client experienced in home country, they must be safe here. And as I've said numerous times and using Felipe, that's not always the case. Our client may be experiencing abuse and neglect here as well for their LGBTQIA identities. So it's really important that when we think about SIJS, there may be a really helpful fact in terms of our client may identify as LGBTQ, and there may be that last prong, not in the best interest to return to the country. Yes, it would be not in their best interest to return to the country. However, our client may say, I don't feel comfortable with putting this fact in my application. And there may be other facts around, maybe a parent abandoned or abused and neglected, on other facts as well. And we are centering our clients here. What does our client feel comfortable with? Can we move this application even without this fact on their LGBTQ identity? Because we could be putting them in more danger or in an unsafe place, and our relationship may become unsafe for them if we're moving forward with a claim that our client doesn't feel comfortable with. They know and they're experts in their own lives, so respecting and learning from them is really important. So don't fall into the trap of US exceptionalism, because our client may not feel safe in the US. That's important to keep in mind. And also, LGBTQ clients are highly vulnerable for violence in the US. They are highly vulnerable for trafficking. And if we had more time, I would ask Mireya to tell us about a story that Mireya experienced with a client who was trafficked into the US. But please be on the lookout for U visas and T visas for our clients. And for facts that may have to do with who brought our client here, what is our client doing here? I'm thinking of the T visa context. Is our client receiving money in a group that they may feel comfortable with, a group that they may feel affirmed by? But is there a money exchange there? Could that be sexual exploitation? And LGBTQ clients may be even more vulnerable to that kind of sexual exploitation because they may not have anybody else that's affirming to them. Okay, so just in a few minutes, I will ask you to think about Felipe again. Okay, so you're gathering facts for immigration relief for Felipe. And Felipe has disclosed to you that he identifies as a boy. Their gender identity is boy. And Felipe wore earrings, and one day the police told him to take the earrings off. The next time the police took off Felipe's earrings by force, and this actually is based on a client that I had. Some community members made fun of Felipe for the ways that he wore his hair. Your client's mom abandoned him, but he grew up with a grandmother who regularly attended church and is now reunified with an uncle. Remember the uncle that from the ORR shelter, the uncle that was unsafe with Felipe? Your client disclosed that he earns a little bit of money by hanging out with a friend that he knows from his town in Guatemala. Because his uncle is not supportive of his sexual orientation, he's thinking about moving in with this friend. So can you tell me if you think that Felipe has asylum? And in what grounds? What are the protected grounds for Felipe? I definitely think that Felipe has asylum. And I'm looking at the facts around the police. I'm looking at the community members making fun of the ways that he wore his hair. Yes. So I will want to bring those PSGs in here. I also want to learn more about grandmother who regularly attended church. How did grandmother treat him? What were other church members saying about Felipe? Did Felipe want to go to church? And maybe somebody said that Felipe couldn't attend church because of his sexual orientation. Could that be what the legend claimed? That's something that I wanted to bring up earlier, and it's here in Felipe's story. And then I will skip a little bit, and I want to ask you if you see a T here. What are the facts for a T? The friend. Yeah, why is he earning more money? What is he doing? Does this friend have anything to do with him being here? Is he in the US? due to this friend promising work. And now it's that exploitation. Who is this? He knows that this friend is from Guatemala. So that will give me something to think about. I will want to explore that more. So we may have many situations like Felipe in our cases. And I think it's really important to look at the forms of relief that I mentioned, but also VAWA, and just to be constantly bringing up questions and coming from a place of curiosity in your work with your clients as you discover more of these facts. And then just to end, self-care. Self-care is so important. Mireya also talked about self-care. As a queer person, I know that these facts are going to affect me in a way where I'm going to have to take care of myself before I meet with a client, after I meet with my client, when I'm in court with my client, when I'm at the asylum office, meeting with my client. So what do you tell yourself? What's your support system for your clients? And if you don't identify as queer, and these facts are going to affect you as well. So please engage in self-care. And then I want to end with a quote. And the quote is by Sylvia Rivera. So this is Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson. And this is a mural in Dallas. And it says, "I was a radical, a revolutionist. I am still a revolutionist. I am glad I was in the Stonewall riot. I remember when someone threw a Molotov cocktail. I thought, my God, the revolution is here. The revolution is finally here." And this is our revolution. Revolution is action. Revolution is active. And then this revolution of allyship. What is one action or practice that is or will become your revolution? If you can just put it on the chat. You can just jot it on the chat. What is one thing that will become your revolution? Maybe something that you learned today, but it doesn't have to be. It could be your own practice that you will move forward in this allyship with our clients who are LGBTQ, or the young people who may identify as LGBTQ or may have an imputed LGBTQ claim. They don't have to identify as LGBTQ in order for us to move their cases forward. Commitment to justice. The identity will. Yeah, the identity will. Yes. Never be silent about your own allyship. Yes. And not being silent may mean that we do some learning with our clients as well. If our clients express any homophobia or any transphobia, that's a good learning opportunity to call in and to be in this space with our clients as to where's that coming from? Where did they learn that? That may have been a very difficult space for them, in which they themselves may have been oppressed. And so being able to call in and learn with our clients. Warmth and acceptance, dedication, empowerment, and advocating for our clients. Acknowledging our privilege and ignorance, becoming a safe space for them. Thank you all so much. I know that we're a few minutes late, so I will pass it to Mireya. Thank you.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you all. I thought that was fantastic. I took the liberty of answering one of the questions directed at you, Anna. But right now we're just going to open it up to any questions. I know we're running a little short on time, but if you have any questions and you don't mind sticking around while we wrap up, that would be great. I know Marissa has some final things to say.
It would help if I was unmuted. No, you said it all. We will stick a little longer after the webinar, but I want to thank Anna for her knowledge and her compassion, and most important, her vulnerability. We know that vulnerability comes from a place of strength. So thank you so much for sharing so much amazing information and so helpful. But yeah, please if you have any questions, put them on the Q&A or on the chat. But if for some reason we don't get to your answer, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Or if you have questions for Anna, we can make sure that she gets them and we'll be more than happy to follow up with you. But if I don't see any questions so far, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. But please, again, don't hesitate to reach out to us if we could assist you in anything. Please do not forget to complete the feedback. This helps us a lot, helps us improve our resources, our reading resources, our webinars. So if you have a topic that you wanna see come to, for us to conduct, please include that as well. Also, if you're gonna be requesting CILA or a letter of attendance, please complete that as well. Those have been dropped on the chat. And you'll be getting a copy of this PowerPoint, which includes all the links in case you did not get them here. And the recording will be posted in, I would say, maybe in the next couple of weeks. So we have provided a link of where to find that as well, but we'll send you more information and a follow-up email as well. We are on social media thanks to our young staff that has put us on the map. Just kidding. But if you want to follow us, we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can scan the QR codes on your slide and please follow us. We put a lot of good information relevant to your work. Stay connected with CILA. You could visit any of the resources that we have, join any of the listservs. Again, these links are going to be provided with a PowerPoint, so you could access them if you have any questions, technical assistance. Also, please join our monthly newsletter. We highlight if you have any good outcome on a case, or you want to share some good news, please share with us. We always highlight those on our newsletters, and we put a lot of important information as well. And we also post up any upcoming trainings and so forth. And thank you again so much. This has been great. I have learned so much. We are not experts on the matter, but we do care, and we do think that we should make it our job to stay informed and to be supportive and empathetic. And yeah, thank you so much for the amazing work you're doing. Your work does matter. They do notice, and they do keep it in their hearts. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ana. Again, thank you, Mireya. Thank you to everyone.